but I think the concept is this. When you get really specific about your ICP, you can actually calculate the total addressable market in your geography.
Exactly. Let's say your ICP is 500 to 2,000 employees, healthcare organizations with 200 miles of your facility. You can look up how many organizations fit that profile, estimate their average IT spend, and calculate your total market opportunity. It might be 192 million, it might be 300 million, but now you have a number in play.
Yeah, and once you have that number, you can do all kinds of things. You can build your strategic account development plan. You can prioritize prospects, allocate sales resources, and really measure your market penetration. You go from spray and pray to surgical precision.
The Circular Integrity Show, the premier podcast and information source for leaders in the ITAD and IT reseller community, with a focus on growth strategies, IT lifecycle services, and making sustainability profitable and beneficial to the environment.
Welcome to the Circular Integrity Show. I'm Pete Paisley of Circular Integrity, joined by Tim Suling, Circular Integrity President. Today, we're talking about the latest edition of the Circular Integrity Playbook, Part 2 of building a high-performing tech sales team, best practices for success. So, Tim, today we're diving into something that makes many salespeople uncomfortable when they read it.
Taking a guess, right? It's the opening line of the playbook. The best companies are turning away business.
Exactly. For many in sales, their entire career has been about saying yes to every opportunity. The idea of turning away business, it just feels wrong. But this article from us at Circular Integrity makes a compelling case, and let's take a few minutes to unpack it.
Yeah, it's difficult, right? We've been trained for our entire careers to say yes, to go after that next opportunity. But here's the interesting component, right? You need to really be focused on what your ideal customer is and what that customer does in their core business model. What is it that they are going to provide you from an asset perspective? What is that service opportunity going to look like? And not necessarily jump at an opportunity, but understand that that opportunity is right fit for your organization and the way that it operates.
Yeah, so today we're going to break down a bit how to actually find your niche, build real customer profiles, and apparently discover a $192 million market opportunity that's hiding in plain sight.
Pete, let's start with the we serve everyone approach failing. Your article lists 5 specific consequences to that. Pete, which one hits closest to you?
Honestly, your sales reps becoming jacks of all trades, masters of none. I've watched sales teams struggle because one day they're talking to a healthcare CIO about HIPAA compliance. The next day they're pitching a manufacturing plant leader on commodity recovery. And the day after that, they're trying to understand government procurement processes. They're exhausted and their win rate shows it.
That's really important, right? When you're a generalist, your win rate is going to be 15 to 20%. You're competing on price as your point of differentiation. Time specialists who are really tuned in are achieving success at much higher rates.
Yeah, and the article introduces this concept of riches are in niches, which I love. But here's my pushback. If I narrow my focus, aren't I leaving money on the table?
I get it, right? But let's think about the opportunity. You're pursuing 100 companies at a 20% win rate. You close 20 deals. Now, if you focus on 50 that are perfectly matched to your strengths and your organizational design, and your win rate jumps to 40% because you're a specialist in this case, you close 20 deals, probably at higher profit margins.
Yeah, that math makes sense. But how do you actually figure out which niche to focus on? That's where the SWOT analysis comes in, right?
Exactly. But not the old SWOT you did 20 years ago, right? It's the idea that those just kind of sit around and don't be actioned. Spend time being strategic. Spend time looking at how you're going to actually capture this market share and then hold yourself accountable. SWOTs are useful, but we have a more practical approach to making that SWOT actionable.
So the article, Tim, suggests starting with AI, ChatGPT or Claude, to generate a baseline SWOT. I actually tried this during the article prep. I asked ChatGPT to create a SWOT for a $10 million ITAD company based in Ohio, and it gave me a comprehensive analysis with strengths like dual revenue streams and strategic location.
Now, the response is spot on, right? But that's true for every organization. What's generic is that it doesn't necessarily play to your strengths. Be really focused on what those opportunities are.
Yeah, and then the article recommends things like a 90-minute meeting with your leadership team and how to make it brutally honest. And I love the specific questions they provide for this meeting. For example, on strengths, it's not just what are we good at, it's what do we do better than 90% of our competitors, and what would be hard for our competitors to replicate.
That's truly spot on. But interestingly, too, is the weakness component. It's really the most critical. And it's where companies really get a little bit nervous, right? It's the idea of asking yourself questions that are designed to force you to be honest, that are designed to call out what our opportunities are and thereby change the direction of the business. What clients should we not be looking at? What services should we be offering? And equally important, what's keeping us up at night? What is it that we're doing that we can do better at and therefore become a more robust organization?
Yeah, those keeping me up at night questions are brutal. And for some, it's data security liability, where one breach from an improper disposal could destroy them. That's a real weakness some companies feel they want to address as well, not hide from.
And that's spot on, right? That's the point. When you're honest about your weaknesses, you can make strategic decisions that then change the course of your entire organization. Maybe you don't pursue a high security vertical that may put you in jeopardy. Maybe you focus on services that are really much within your core. Your weaknesses can become your opportunities, and that's incredibly powerful. Invest heavily in those areas that can be a point of differentiation.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the opportunity section also opened my eyes in terms of what customer segments are we not pursuing that we could win. And it made me think about the fact that certain customers might be ignoring big market opportunities right in their own backyard. Like maybe they're located in an area full of some leading universities, for example.
And the threat section is, equally important, right? We talk about some of the actions being overseen by some of the OEMs, or they're getting more into the space that OEMs going direct to an end user, thereby bypassing an ITAD. That's a real threat that we should think about when you look at your customer segments that you're focused on. Are you going to be at risk of going up against a much larger player?
Yeah, big time consideration. So Tim, once you've done this honest SWOT analysis, what's next? The article introduces this customer segmentation framework that honestly looked kind of overwhelming at first.
Let's break it down a bit. Our article shows that ITAD companies have multiple sales channels: direct enterprise, vertical direct, government, channel partners, OEM, reverse logistics. Each of these is a completely different business.
And the example used in the article is really helpful. A smaller Ohio-based ITAD that primarily serves tech and finance companies. They match each segment against their SWOT. Is this a strength, a weakness, or an opportunity?
Right on, right? And most segments for a smaller ITAD are going to be weaknesses or opportunities, not current strengths. That's okay. The point is to identify where you could and can win, not where you're already winning.
Then they go deeper in the article, what they call ICP Dimension 1, which is company size segmentation. This is eye-opening. I've been lumping enterprise customers together in the past, but the buying process for a 200-person company is completely different than a 20,000-person company.
Break it down, right? Into Fortune 500, medium enterprise, 500 to 5,000 employees, small to medium enterprises, 100 to 500, and then also go a step further and go government and education. And here's the counterintuitive insight, right? The mid-market accounts are often more profitable than your Fortune 500s.
Wait a minute. So explain that a bit. Bigger deals should mean better profit, right?
Not always. That's the key. We talk about those 4 reasons. Ultimately, the mid-market is less competitive pressure, which means better margins for you, faster sales cycles, because there's lower customer acquisition costs, less demanding clients potentially because they're looking at you as a partner, and longer retention, which is going to increase your lifetime value more so than those Fortune 500 companies where your margins just might be a little more squeezed.
Yeah, and that's a bit of a mindset shift for some. So there's also ICP Dimension 2 in the article, industry vertical segmentation. And this is where it says the magic kind of happens.
Because when you think about specializing by vertical, you're talking the customer's language. You understand their pain points. You know their regulatory environment. You can reference relevant case studies and build a differentiated brand for yourself. You become the ITAD for healthcare, or the ITAD for financial services, or the ITAD for manufacturing, and you can do that all within your own industry.
Yeah, and you claiming the leadership position is marketing gold. The article also gives practical advice here too about how to do that. Use your local business journal to see what industries are predominant in your area. An ITAD in Omaha might focus on agriculture. One in Huntsville, Alabama might focus on space and defense.
Be honest with yourself. Understand what you need to do to compete effectively in these spaces. If you're targeting financial services, maybe you invest in ESG reporting software. If you're targeting healthcare, make sure that you're fully up to speed on HIPAA regulations and PHI requirements.
So let me see if I can synthesize this. You start with an honest SWOT. You map your customer segments against the SWOT. You break down company size and identify which size range is most profitable for you. Then you pick an industry vertical that aligns with your strengths and local market.
Spot on, Pete. And the result is you go from we serve any company with IT equipment to something like we serve companies that are 500 to 2,000 employees within healthcare organizations across the Midwest that require HIPAA compliancy. ITAD services and ITAD data destruction. The point is you're being very specific in what you are and what you want to be. But again, to just resonate that point is you don't need to do this as a singular, you're just healthcare, but you need to be specific with each of those verticals and how you're going to go to market. So let's talk about this $192 million opportunity that we keep mentioning in our article. Where does this number come from, Pete?
The article doesn't fully reveal it quite yet. There's more about that coming in part 3. But I think the concept is this. When you get really specific about your ICP, you can actually calculate the total addressable market in your geography.
Exactly. Let's say your ICP is 500 to 2,000 employees, healthcare organizations with 200 miles of your facility. You can look up how many organizations fit that profile, estimate their average IT spend, and calculate your total market opportunity. It might be 192 million, it might be 300 million, but now you have a number in play.
Yeah, and once you have that number, you can do all kinds of things. You can build your strategic account development plan. You can prioritize prospects, allocate sales resources, and really measure your market penetration. You go from spray and pray to surgical precision.
Your article ends with the teaser for part 3, which will be covering finding your top prospect, prioritizing, building a strategic plan that your account developers can go after. But we also talk about the ICP framework. We talk about how ITADs can make a lot of progress in this space.
Yeah, so let's give the listeners some action items. If you're an ITAD owner or sales leader listening to this, what should you do this week?
Sure. Couple items. First, focus on building a SWOT analysis for your company. Be specific. Revenue, location, capabilities. Second, schedule a 90-minute meeting with your executive team. Use the questions from the article that we post to make your SWOT brutally honest. Third, map your customer segments. Which are your strengths? Which are your opportunities? Which should you avoid because they're your weaknesses? And fourth, pick 2 to 3 potential ICPs to explore. Consider company size and industry vertical. Think about which combinations align with your strengths.
Yeah, so successful ITADs will stop saying yes to every opportunity, get clear on their ICP, and train their sales team to focus on those ideal customers and measure their win rate improvement over the next quarter.
That's the mindset shift. Turning away business that doesn't fit your ICP isn't leaving money on the table. It's focusing your resources on the opportunities that are right for you, that you can win at higher rates and have higher margins.
All right, let's wrap up. The big idea from this Circular Integrity article is stop trying to serve everyone. The riches really are in the niches.
Use your SWOT analysis to understand your true strengths and weaknesses. Segment your market by sales channel, company size, industry vertical. Build specific ICPs that align with you and what you do best.
Yeah, and remember, the best performing ITADs can sometimes turn away business, not because they're arrogant, but because they're strategic. They know who they serve best, and they focus relentlessly on those customers.
If you want to dive deeper, the article mentions that you can always reach out to Pete or myself at Circular Integrity. We offer free 30-minute strategic calls to really help ITAD and e-waste companies research and restructure their sales approach.
And stay tuned for part 3 of this series, which will cover building your strategic account development plan and finding that market opportunity in your backyard.
Thanks for listening to the Circular Integrity Show. If it was valuable, share it with other ITAD owners who are maybe tired of competing on price and ready to build a differentiated business approach.
Yeah, until next time, get specific, get strategic, and get growing.
You've been listening to the Circular Integrity Show. Thanks for joining us. Don't miss our next episode coming soon, where we feature market leaders in the IT asset disposition and reseller communities. Thanks to our sponsors, Early Upgrade and MG Environmental. And special thanks to our guest, Tim Suling of Circular Integrity. The Circular Integrity Show is produced and written by Pete Paisley. Follow Circular Integrity on LinkedIn for links to more content.